Welcome to MiniWebTool. Today, we're going to tackle a problem that shows up pretty much everywhere, from the kitchen to the workshop. It's a topic that can cause a little bit of panic for a lot of people. Fractions. But stick with me, because by the end of this, you're not just going to know the rules, you're going to understand why they actually work. So, picture this. You're right in the middle of baking something delicious. The recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of flour, and then you also have to add 1/3 of a cup of sugar. You look at your measuring cups, and you just kind of pause. How much is that exactly, altogether? Or hey, maybe you're in the workshop. A plan says you need a piece of wood that's 5.5 inches long, but then you've got to trim off 3/8 of an inch. It's in these little everyday moments that fractions suddenly jump out of the textbook and get real. And let's be honest, we've all felt it, right? That little wave of panic when fractions show up. We're taught to see them as this complicated, annoying thing, but what if they're not? What if they're actually just a language? The language of being precise. Okay, let's dive into that. If fractions are so useful, why do so many of us find them so incredibly frustrating? Well, the problem isn't you. Not at all. It's that the rules themselves can feel completely random. They seem to break all the normal patterns of math that we're used to. I mean, think about it. With whole numbers, 2 plus 2 is 4. It just makes sense. It's totally intuitive. But with fractions, 1/2 plus 1/2 isn't 1/4, it's 1 whole. So wait, why do you add the top numbers but not the bottom ones? It just feels like the rules change for no reason, and that is right at the core of all the frustration. And yeah, this leads to some very common pain points. You've got the dreaded common denominator problem. There's just general confusion over why the rules for adding are so different from multiplying. And then you have the whole mess of mixed numbers. I mean, how do you even start a problem that has 4 and 5/6 in it? And to top it all off, even if you get an answer, you're told you have to simplify it. It's no wonder it feels so overwhelming. So let's just wipe the slate clean. We're going to forget all those confusing rules for just a minute and start completely from scratch. We're going to build a really solid, intuitive foundation for what a fraction actually is. At its heart, a fraction is simply a part of a whole. That's it. Seriously, let's use the classic and delicious example, a pizza. If you can understand pizza, you can absolutely understand fractions. So every fraction has 2 parts, right? The top number, that's the numerator. It's just counting how many parts you have. The bottom number, the denominator, just tells you how many equal parts the entire thing was cut into. So if a pizza was cut into 8 slices and you have 1 of them, you have 1/8. Simple as that. Now this right here, what's on this slide, this is probably the single most important concept for getting fractions. The denominator defines the size of the slice. Think about it. The bigger that bottom number is, the more pieces the pizza was cut into, which means each individual slice is smaller. So a 1/4 slice is way bigger than a 1/8 slice. This one idea is the key that unlocks everything else. Okay, so now that we've got that core concept down, let's go back to those confusing operations. We're going to see how the rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing actually make perfect sense once you understand that size of the slice idea. Let's start with addition. Imagine I told you to add 3 apples and 2 oranges. You can't just say you have 5 apple oranges. That doesn't make any sense. You first have to find a common name for them, right? Like 5 pieces of fruit. Well, fractions are exactly the same. You just can't add things that are different sizes. And this is why we need a common denominator. All that really means is finding a common slice size. You can't just add 1/2 and 1/4 because the slices are literally different sizes. But what if we cut that 1/2 slice in half? Now it's 2 1/4 slices. So 1/2 is the same as 2/4. And now our problem is easy. 2/4 plus 1/4. We're adding the same size slices, so the answer is 3/4. It makes perfect sense. Multiplication, thankfully, is so much simpler. The secret is to stop thinking of the word times and start thinking of the word of. In fractions, that little multiplication symbol really just means of. So if a problem asks for 1/2 times 1/2, it's really just asking what is half of a half. Imagine you have half of a chocolate bar and you give me half of your piece. How much of the original whole chocolate bar do I have? 1/4, right? 1/2 of 1/2 is 1/4. The math rule, top times top and bottom times bottom, just works. And now for division, the one with that super weird flip and multiply rule. Let's just demystify it right now. Division isn't really about cutting things up. It's about measuring. It's just asking how many of one thing can fit inside another. For example, 6 divided by 2 is just asking how many 2's fit inside a 6. The answer's 3. So for fractions, 1/2 divided by 1/4 is just asking how many 1/4 slices can fit inside a 1/2 slice. Well, as we saw earlier, a 1/2 slice is the exact same size as 2 1/4 slices. So the answer is 2. That flip and multiply rule, it's just a mathematical shortcut that gets you to that same logical answer every single time. Okay, we have totally covered the why behind the rules. Now that you actually understand the logic, you can tackle any fraction problem. But, when you're dealing with really messy fractions like 7/16 plus 5/12, the calculations can get tedious, and it's super easy to make one tiny mistake. That's where having a practical tool can really help you apply what you've learned, but with speed and accuracy. And this is where a dedicated tool is just incredibly helpful. A good fraction calculator, like the free one we have on MiniWebTool, is designed to handle these exact pain points we talked about. It takes care of all that tedious arithmetic, so you can focus on setting the problem up correctly and really understanding the result. Remember that problem with the messy mixed numbers? With a tool, you don't have to do any of that complex conversion yourself. You just enter the numbers exactly as you see them. Let's try a tricky one. -1 2/3 plus 4 5/6. You click Calculate and boom, you instantly get the correct answer, fully simplified. It gives you both the improper fraction, 19/6, and the mixed number, 3 1/6. But the most useful feature for learning is that it doesn't just give you the answer, it shows you the process, which reinforces everything we just covered. So, we've covered a ton of ground here. Let's just quickly summarize the core concepts that are going to give you lasting confidence whenever you're dealing with fractions from now on. Here are your keys to confidence. Number 1, the denominator defines the size of the parts. That is the most crucial point. Number 2, you can only add or subtract parts that are the same size. That's all a common denominator really is. And number 3, multiplication means of, and division is just asking how many fit inside. Understanding the why is really the key to real confidence with fractions. And now, you've got a great tool to help you practice and check your work. Give it a try by searching for MiniWebTool Fraction Calculator. We really hope this explainer helped make fractions a little less scary and a lot more understandable. For more explainers that make complex topics simple, be sure to subscribe to MiniWebTool.